We continuing on with our lesson, our book on the preacher and the preacher's wife. We were going through, I guess we were on page 31. And 31, I guess we'll take up, kind of do a recap from page 31. Some good advice from our preacher's wife, who might become a preacher's wife. There's some suggestions taken from an article by Hazel Prince, wife of Burl Prince in Nashville, Tennessee. Number one, you do not announce what you will and will not do. You do not go in and say, we're never going to do this, because inevitably you're going to end up doing that, or you're going to come to a situation where you may be forced to do that, or we're going to do this, and going to do this, and it's not going to happen. And if you make announcements like that, then it becomes antagonistic. People start losing consideration for you if you do not keep your word. Number two, do not attempt to keep pace with your husband in all of his service. The wife has obligations that she needs to take care of, and being a helpmeet does not mean being with the husband at all times. And you don't go with the husband on every call that he makes. I mean, there's obviously opportunities and times when it's advisable for the wife to go along with the husband, but that's not the case always. Because you do, as a wife, you have responsibilities to your family, to your children. So, the wife needs to be a keeper of the home, taking care of the children. And if she's off with the husband, she's neglecting the other duties that she's supposed to be doing. Number three, you do not try to copy your predecessor. Usually, if a preacher and preacher's wife comes in, they're not the ones who found that congregation or start the congregation or plant the congregation. They're not the first ones there. And so you don't try to duplicate, what the predecessor was doing. You're your own person. And, the congregation either has to accept you the way you are or they don't. But you can't change who you are when you go into a congregation. You can't become someone else. It's like if I was a preacher, I can't come in and pretend to be Johnny Ramsey, because I'm just not that kind of person. And if I try to do that, I'm going to fail miserably, So we know we have to be our own person. The wife has to be her own person. She has to support her husband. And, each person's going to be different. So you can't try to copy what the predecessor was doing. And number four, never try to take the leadership in all the ladies' work. That doesn't necessarily mean that the preacher's wife won't end up with the job, but she shouldn't try to go in and start taking control of all the, if a person has great organization skills, and of course it depends on their personality too. If a person's an A-type personality, they're a kind of a take control type of person, they're going to have to force themselves not to go in and assume control of all the ladies' activities, like the prayer breakfasts and the ladies' days and ladies' Bible class and all these other things. Teaching a class and taking control of all these things, because there's a lot of opportunity for other women in the congregation to fulfill some of these. And if, as a preacher's wife, if you take those opportunities away from them, then where are they going to serve? In what capacity will they serve? So if they don't have a position for them to fulfill, they're going to feel left out. So it's important, as a preacher's wife, that you don't go and just assume all control over all the women's activities. And I can look at this and I can see that happening either by default because we look at the preacher's wife as someone to depend upon now, and we got the preacher, and the preacher's wife ought to be doing some stuff. So we ought to put her. We ought to do this. Now we got a preacher's wife. She can take care of this. And we shouldn't be doing that. The preacher's wife has opportunities to serve. So, any comments on that? Any suggestions or comments?
I think it's good. I mean, it just those are good comments that not only for the wife or anybody, just realizing that of the body we have different talents and not trying to, because you're a preacher's wife or even if you're the son or daughter of a preacher, not trying to do it all. That's why there's many members. Just make sure we're leaning on each other to get the ultimate task, keep the structure going.
Yeah.
Too much can be a bad thing. You put too much of yourself.
Now, if one person takes it all on, then that person starts getting stressed. I think that's loud enough. I started hearing myself echo and going, wait a second. But hearing myself talk. I am hard of hearing, but I'm not that hard. But if one person does take on a majority of the things, that person starts getting stressed. And the others who, they lose out on the opportunity to serve. So we need to be, as Christians, we need to be encouraging one another to serve. We need to be finding opportunities to serve, to look for ways to serve. And, everyone needs to be active. There's no such thing as a passive Christian. Do not form a clique around yourself. I'm sure everybody's been familiar with cliques, how you've either been on the inside or the outside looking in or inside looking out. I guess if you're in a clique, you don't tend to look out, though. But most of us can identify with being on the outside of a clique, seeing a group of people and you're kind of shunned by them, or not necessarily shunned by them, but you're not part of them. You don't feel like you're part of the group, and be that inadvertently or purposely, it doesn't feel good. It doesn't feel good to be an outsider looking in. So we don't. Everyone's going to have close friends. You're going to have different levels of friendship. You're going to be more comfortable with some people. But you shouldn't be so comfortable with someone that you exclude everyone else, which is the very definition of a clique. You don't want to be exclusive because everyone knows how it feels to be excluded. And if you get in that habit of forming a clique, then you have other problems. You become, what's the word? I can't think of it.
You can find yourself in that situation where you're partaking and showing partiality.
Partiality. That's the word I was looking for. Thank you, Robert. You become partial. You start showing partiality. And we know that there's no partiality with God. We're supposed to be mimicking or imitating God. So we shouldn't have any partiality. You know, if a person comes in with a $800 suit on, and someone comes in with, blue jeans with holes in them and old tattered tennis shoes, we shouldn't treat either one of them differently. They're a soul. That's what we need to look at. We need to look at the soul, not the person. Number 6, never frown or make gestures. Anyone have any comments about the last section before I go on?
Well, I think it's very easy to form a clique unintentionally.
I was going to comment on the clique part too, because how would you know? Usually the person who's not in the clique is the one who knows that there's a clique, not the person who has the clique.
Yeah.
Is that clique? So, I mean, how would you, it's always that person on the outside looking in. They can pick up on it. So, how would you approach or handle?
Well, that's a good point. I mean, if you're not intending to be in a clique, it's unintentional. How do we avoid that? Any questions?
Personality is different. Some people are more outgoing than others. So with the preacher's wife, it doesn't say you have to have an outgoing personality. So if it's a preacher's wife that's more reserved or timid, she may not seek out everybody and be friends with them all at once because she's more timid and she doesn't know them. But before she knows it, because she's, quote, the preacher's wife and everybody wants her to feel loved and welcome, she may have a clique that's sort of formed around her. Is what I'm saying. And that could hold true with any of us. Get ourselves, all of a sudden, we have friends, the same friends that seem to want to be with us and talk to us and all this, but yet we might be more reserved where it's harder for us to meet visitors and new people to the church. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Is that clear?
When I first, years ago, when I first came here, I felt that there were cliques. Because I could tell. There were certain people, I watched.
You were on the outside looking in.
Yeah, I'm a people watcher. And I could tell there were certain people who, they sat together or they conversated with only certain people after service. And they didn't realize they were clique until I mentioned it. I said, well, y'all, I didn't want to get involved with y'all's clique. And they're like, whoa, a clique. But, there was a group here, group there, group there.
It's like family groups. A family group, I'm comfortable talking with you. I'm comfortable, I'll go up and hug Rachel. But I won't necessarily go up and hug Marilyn or, anybody else because it's different, It's a family, but I try not to be exclusive with any one person or any one group. I try to, we all should be trying to go out and greet everyone, so.
It's probably a female thing with the clique.
It's a female thing with clique?
Well, I don't think men really worry about, and I'm not a man, of course I really can't speak for a man, but I don't think men have cliques or even pay any attention. I think it's a female thing. Yeah, we're emotional, y'all country, y'all care. You
Yeah,
care.
what's the deal?
Everyone, it's just, y'all just kind of, but I think it's a female thing. What, female? Yeah, I agree, yeah.
So you say women tend to be more cliquish.
We are more cliquish.
Because of emotional, and
That's why we talk so much.
That's why we hardly understand y'all.
But,
that's why guys don't understand women.
well, because we're just so much above y'all.
I think overall we just have to be observant just being mindful of, and sometimes it's hard to do, take yourself out of the scene or out of the picture and kind of, and being that fly on the wall. That can be said with this topic with cliques, it can be said with preaching, teaching, just your interaction with people in total, whatever it is. I mean, we're told that we have to examine ourselves, make sure we're doing right. I think a lot of things honestly can be solved with just self-examinations, observation, and there's a word I'm forgetting to say. Being watchful. I can't remember what I'm trying to say, but
Vigilant?
Vigilant. Thank you.
Somebody just had a birthday, he's older, so maybe loses some.
Yeah.
Well, he's
I lost the
30 years old now, so.
We just have to, as Christians, we have to watch out because the devil has perfected his game, and he will exploit where he can exploit. He's going to take that mile wherever he can find a little bitty gap, and we just have to be vigilant all the time, being sure that we're not unintentionally excluding or unintentionally just keeping, certain folks around us, and being aware that there's different personality types. You have some that might be unintentionally excluded, but they're very reserved, and so you're going to have to go to them, or the opposite. The people that might be unintentionally excluded might be very outgoing. They're going to find their way to you, but just kind of be aware.
Okay, so,
People that I don't know.
okay, women. How can you avoid being cliquish? How can you avoid being cliquish or try to be the same way with, make a concerted effort to go out and everyone in the congregation, all the other women in the congregation say, I'm glad to see you here.
Yeah. Because I think it's a society thing that we get this from. Because we grow up and we stereotype. We're great. Americans are great about stereotyping people. We assume, we make that assumption. And so,
And we act on those assumptions.
And we act on those assumptions. And so I think that's something that's just unfortunately kind of in the water, and we've been drinking of the water, and so we have a tendency to bring it to church, whether that's our intention or not. But it's just because it's we do it. We're just that way. We're not like we used to be. It's like now where I live, years ago, communities were segregated. They were divided up.
Yeah.
You had the east side, you had the across the tracks, whatever, and now you have multi, all kinds of people that live in your neighborhood now. There's nothing. Only thing that's I guess segregates you is the housing that you live in. But if you live in that neighborhood, you don't know. And I still segregate myself because I don't know who my neighbors are. They could come over and do whatever. I couldn't tell you because this side and this side, I'll talk to them. I don't. I go in and I close my door. But I'm not the only one guilty of that, people. Come on. Y'all know your neighbors?
No. Yes.
Couple of them.
One of them.
Couple of them?
Well,
You know all your neighbors? I have a lot of neighbors, but...
Isn't that pretty much a
cliquish.
sign of the times anymore?
I mean, unfortunately.
When I was growing up, I remember as a kid getting on my bicycle and riding all over town
Yes.
by myself. Yeah, I ride all over town, 3 or 4 miles all around town, just riding around. I didn't worry about anything. Now you can't hardly, let your children out of your sight. You don't want to let them out of your sight because all the things that can happen to them. But in the 50s and 60s, they had big front porches. They'd sit out on the front porch and meet everybody. People would come up and sit on your porch and have something.
Because even even on me growing up and growing up in the church, and, you know, we on Sunday afternoons, you know, you met with your neighbors and you did that. You still extended that family and everything on Sundays. But now,
Some of that too, we become more vocal. We first have to plan to do all our neighbors. But we all moved in there, and after a while, people just kept moving so much.
Right.
You just stop on, you can't keep up, just be a while.
Quit trying to keep up.
Stay for short periods of years.
we just don't do that. We don't invite people in our home anymore. I don't invite my neighbors in my home.
It's after hearing all the scary news about inviting people over that, what is it, during Hurricane Katrina and Sandy, you know, people were inviting the refugees into their home, taken care of, and the horror stories started how they were killing the homeowners. So it's like, yeah. I would like to be more outgoing and say hi to my neighbors, just getting up the courage to go out and say hi, no problem.
Well, we're getting a little bit off course because, you know, we're specifically talking about preacher and preacher's wife, and it's more of a congregational type of setting is what we're talking about, you know, because when you walk into a congregation, if you're visiting a congregation, you want to feel welcome. You know, everyone wants to feel welcome. Because if you don't feel welcome, guess what?
You don't want to be there.
You're not going to come back. If you come in and no one says hi to you, no one greets you, and you sit down and you hear the sermon, and you get up, and you kind of meander to the door, and no one stops you and says, hi, glad to meet you, and ask your name or where you're from, you're probably not going to be back. Because people aren't, I mean, we are social. We are social people. There are very few true loners out there. You know, we like some company. Isn't that right? So, you know, we don't want to be left out. We don't want to let anyone feel like they're left out. So let's all make the concerted effort, you know, to greet everyone who comes through the door. You know, make them work their way to their seat. You know, have them inundated as they come in the door. You know, hey, come on. Because we need, you know, as a family. Have you ever gone to a family reunion and not said anything to anybody? You go to a family reunion, and go. You know, it's family. We're a family here. Number 6, never frown or make gestures to correct any mistake your husband makes during your sermon. It might confuse him. It might cause some more confusion in his lesson.
I can say right now that it does.
Well, if you stop looking at me, it would be confusing.
Just close your eyes when you do your stuff.
It's not my fault. He's always looking at me.
I'm looking at everyone.
Make eye contact with me and then you make a face. Well, there's always a time and place.
There's always a time and a place. I mean, obviously, if it's something, you know, drastically incorrect, then they need to be corrected then, you know, before they go. Because if they're teaching error, then they need to be corrected. If they're purposely teaching error, they need to be removed. But so, it says the criticism at home, the frank criticism at home would be more appreciated by the husband than, obviously you don't correct him in the middle of his sermon, and your wife doesn't get up and correct him. Hopefully if someone's teaching error, one of the men will get up and correct them. Number 7, do not live above your income. That's hard. You know, is it impossible? No, it's quite possible to live. It's possible to live beneath your income. We just don't like the idea of doing it. We don't like, as people, we don't like to be deprived of what we feel is ours. I can get it because I've got the money. But just because you have the money doesn't mean you need what you want. I'm reading a book, Dave Ramsey, who's a financial consultant. He's also a Christian, so he's got a lot of insight about the uses of money and things. But there are a lot of ways you can get in trouble with money. Obviously, if you get a credit card, we don't have any money, so we'll put it on the credit card. That's the wrong attitude to have. If you don't have the money, you shouldn't be putting it on the credit card. If you don't have the money, how are you going to pay the credit card off? So, any comments about that section?
Well, it takes discipline. It takes discipline.
It takes discipline, yes.
Self-control.
It takes discipline to learn how not to spend money. It takes discipline to say no to oneself. And it's tough. You know, I'll admit it. It's tough to say no to oneself. So, oh yeah, I'd like to have that. Then, if I spend that money, then I won't have it for something else. Number 8, always be thankful and gracious for the many, many special favors, gifts, and kindnesses which will come to you and your family. As a preacher's wife, it's easy to accept them as you're just due after a number of years. A brief letter of appreciation to each benefactor means so much. You know, we were given support by several congregations, some over the last year and some just one-time support. We sent a letter of thanks and appreciation to each of the congregations. And I didn't get a letter from them, but I heard through the grapevine how they were very appreciative of the thank you letter from the congregation. You know, they were very appreciative. And it's good to know that they were appreciated in what they did, and that it was helpful. That's being a good steward of that which is given to you. So we need to be thankful for everything that we have. We need to be thankful for the family we have here, the support we have from one another. There will be hardships, even though you do your best. The irregularity of your husband's hours, the extra responsibility of rearing and disciplining the children, with the husband being gone a great deal. Suffering when he suffers from the burdens of the church, sharing griefs and problems of the members, being separated from relatives for extended periods of time. You know, moving on a frequent basis. The compensations are even greater. The host of priceless friends you will have, the interesting places and people you will enjoy, and the joy and satisfaction that will only come from serving Christ and your fellow man. It might be added that if a preacher's wife measures up to these standards, she is bound to win the hearts of the church her husband serves, and they will probably remember her meek and gentle spirit much longer than they will remember some of the preacher's sermons. You know, preaching or teaching, most people, they don't care how much you know until they know how much you care. If you show that you care, you're gonna be more effective. We need to show one another that we care about them. Any comments? Any suggestions? We have, that ends this chapter. And before we get into the next chapter, I want to find out, have y'all been enjoying this study? Is there anything else y'all would like to study other than this? Or, make suggestions, put them in the suggestion box, talk to me, talk to someone. If there's something you would like to learn more about, or you think would be a good study, whether it be financial or who knows what else, make the suggestion. Because we're always looking for things, interesting topics, something that we can learn from, but we can also study from God's Word, because we need to learn from God's Word. There are a lot of things that we've learned over the years, over the months in this study, and we've gotten a lot of good feedback. I think we learn a lot when we communicate back and forth, get that communication back and forth over the lessons. And the last thing I want to do is something to get boring. If I start seeing eyes rolling back in their head and, or nodding off, I know that we're starting to get it boring. But if you would, be thinking about possible lesson topics. Go ahead. Spit it out. Okay, yeah. If you think of something, put it, you don't want to say it out loud, just write it and put it in the suggestion box, and we'll try to go over whatever it is, whether it be a short-term study or a one-off study, or, we've got about 5 minutes. I have not arranged for a speaker for Sunday, so you're probably going to be stuck hearing me. But I'm going to be making some calls and trying to get some preaching students lined up over the next months to come in. We're going to have them come in for about a month and do a lesson and a Bible class. We're in a better financial situation where we can afford to pay them for both a lesson and the Bible class. It'll help them out, and it'll help us out too. And you won't have to hear me all the time. I'm gonna make some calls, and if I can't get anybody, well, you're stuck with me. You right? Casey, I didn't ask him back. I could call him. I know it's kind of short notice here. It is Wednesday night. It doesn't give much time to prepare a lesson, and I would like to, give him a little bit more than 3 days' notice to prepare a lesson and a Bible class lesson and a sermon. But I can call him back. If you'd like me to call Casey back, I can try to get him back again. But I still want to get some more students coming in.
I'm just saying. I think y'all understand. I'm sorry, I don't. I'm sure y'all understand more why like, you know how the men only can do communion and go up there and start. I'm sorry, I'm not making any sense.
You are.
But, I just want to